Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live Signing. I'm Danny Valdez, and I have a question for you today. What if your path to a more successful, healthy, and satisfying life is actually not about you? That is the question our guest today tackles with his new book, Enough About Me: The Unexpected Power of Selflessness. Richard Louie, welcome. I'm so excited. How are you today?
Danny, I'm doing pretty good. This whole setup was fun to put together. I'm usually, because what we do is straight on, right? So it's
Sure.
great to be here with you at live signing.
Yeah, and tell me, where are we? Is this your home office or your house, or are you at
Yeah,
work?
this is my very humble apartment in New York.
Oh, nice, nice. And how long have you been in New York?
Let's see, I moved here 11 years ago, but for the past, I think 6 or 7, I've been really having two places of residency, California and New York, because of taking care of my father in California.
Oh, great. Well, for the next hour, Richard is going to be signing books and answering as many of your questions as possible. For those who have tuned in and have not yet purchased a book, you still have time to order an autographed copy and submit a question to Richard. Just click over to premiercollectibles.com/Louis, and that's spelled Lui, to order your copy. So, the unexpected power of selflessness, man, in a world of do your thing, get your stuff, live your dreams,
Yeah.
which I know a lot of that is positive. What is
Yes.
this word selflessness about to you?
It first of all, it's accessible. It's not like some gargantuan thing that it's like opening like Mother Teresa or Desmond Tutu. That isn't what you need to sign on to, right? You
Yeah.
can instead say you can do something very accessible, something that's like bite size. I mean, just a quick piece of information that we found in our research is we make a conscious decision roughly every 15 minutes. And so, Danny, that's an opportunity every 15 minutes to potentially think about a selfless notion to what you're doing. Going down the block, seeing somebody in the street,
Yeah.
giving a little bit of yourself by smiling. I'm
Yeah.
having a rough day still, but I'm going to give that bit to somebody else. Buy a coffee for the person behind you. You've seen that before. And
Yeah.
throughout the book, what we do is we go deeper than that, but that is as easy as it might be.
Yeah. That's so cool. And why did you write this anti self help book, and why now?
Um, I think we're living through, as a reporter covering some really tough stories, is that we're living through a selfish pandemic.
Wow.
And that's a kind of another big word on top of another heady idea, right? Selflessness. And so, Danny, the reason why I believe that we're living through a selfish pandemic is because of a lot of what the stories I've covered. So, for instance, with uh, Colorado that happened this week, with Atlanta that happened the week before, and we could go on and on, unfortunately, of those who are epitomize what is selfish by taking other people's lives
Yeah.
because they think their view on the world is the right view. And
Right.
therefore, I have the right to do something which is one, the ultimate sin, if you will, is that to go out and take somebody's life. And
Yeah.
so that's just one part of it. There's also the racial pandemic where we saw people treating people differently just because of the color of their skin, which is certainly what we're living through today too. All these things together says, hey, we're living through a selfish pandemic. Hate and violence is just too cheap right now. It is just too cheap. And so
Yeah.
this is just a small little thing, Danny, that hopefully adds towards a solution, a small little antidote to this problem.
I really got interested in your book because of the word selflessness. And in a day of so many self-help books and
Yeah.
business books on becoming more successful, making more money, how to work your way up into the career of your dreams, in comes this bright yellow copy of a book, and it says enough about me. And it sort of challenged me. Like I'm building my career and wanting to do my thing. And so this really struck me. Do you feel that selflessness is a topic that is really under discussed?
Yeah, it is number one. But to the goals that you just described, Danny, this is not against those at all. This is
Sure.
saying, yeah, go for it, do it, jump, get the brass ring, get two of them. But it's also saying, don't think that we can do it only that and not do the selfless stuff because we can actually do both together.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of the book, is to say you can still do both together.
Mm.
And if you decide to do something selfless, work potentially for a foundation, volunteer for them, uh, give in the street at a food bank. Those things, you know, the majority of us aren't going to make the $1 trillion, the $1 billion, and then give back.
Yeah.
The majority of us will be working along, and don't wait. Don't wait until you think you're going to get to that point, and then it's time to give back. Because you and I both know we don't know how long that long is.
Yeah.
And so take it with us. And on top of that, Danny, we show in the book how a lot of these things that you might consider doing selflessly is additive, meaning 1 + 1 = 3. Sometimes we think if we take out $1 and we give it to somebody else, oh, that's $1 less that I have. And what we show in the book is that no, when you take the dollar out and you give it away, you actually get $2 later. That's the idea behind it. And I think
Yeah.
that idea of it being subtractive, a sacrifice, look, sometimes it is, but what we're saying is the majority of the time, it's not a sacrifice.
Wow.
In that idea, do you know what I mean? That idea of like you
Absolutely.
lose.
Yeah, yeah, no, the concept of giving is actually a way of getting. I love that, reframing what loss actually is. Is that true loss to give away $1? Did you lose something important and
That's right.
valuable?
Right.
Dude, that's really good.
Exactly.
So your father becomes sick, and you walked away, arguably, from pursuing the dream. I mean, you were doing it, and what sort of hold did you take? What sort of mental challenges did you have to overcome personally to make that decision? Was it difficult, or was it a no-brainer? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, Danny, it's strange because in our business of being in front of a camera like this, right, which you understand well, you don't normally ask the system to put you on camera less, because it's, the thing that, not because we're self-centered necessarily.
Right.
I am often, and this is why, by the way, we can talk about that later in terms of why I think I need help. But the idea of that we can do both, and that, being on camera, what was a little weird, because I told my boss, I said, I'm hoping we can figure something out, but I don't think we can, because there's not like a halftime thing
Right.
in news journalism. It was generally, she would send me all over the country and or world, which means you were always on call.
Yeah.
And instead, what she said was, I'm taking care of my mom in Florida, and we're both in New York. So let's figure it out together.
Wow.
And a week later, she came back with 4 ideas on a piece of paper. Like, seriously, she had, not on these signing plates, but she came back on notes and said, I have idea 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Wow.
And she said, let's wait. When you're ready to pull the trigger, we'll do it.
Wow.
A year later, I had time to think about it. And there's no way I didn't want to be there for my father in California. So I started to work part-time. She let me do that. And I began flying the 10-hour door-to-door trip about 3 times round trip. So it's 20 hours, 3 times a month. And it became pretty tiring.
Yeah. And so what did you, in this process, I know you put this experience in this book, but what did you learn? What was something that really stuck out that you learned in this process of possibly risking your career for this season of taking care of your father?
You have no idea what's going to happen. And it's going to change your view on what's important in ways that you were never expecting. So when I was I got these, I think, over the weekend, and I was writing it for my boss, the one I'm talking about. And I was like, what am I going to write? But number one, I haven't written by hand anything as in terms of a note in forever. But I'm writing the note, and the first words that just stream out of the pen are, thank you for changing my life. I never thought I would be writing a book on selflessness and be able to take care of my dad.
Yeah.
And I know she didn't think that way back then. She didn't think it was going to change one of her employees, one of her team members' outcome. But I would never have written this if it weren't for her saying, yes, go take care of your father. And then 6 years later, you know, so yeah, I had no idea. And
Yeah.
this just literally fell in my lap. And I sat by this window and by this computer that I'm talking to you from, writing it almost exactly a year to the date is when I first started putting finger to keypad.
Wow.
Yeah,
So,
almost exactly.
yeah. So there's a belief that, and I sort of heard this in the college years, that altruism is not possible, meaning that, we can't actually do something for another person secretly. It's really for ourselves, for the feeling we get, or to feed ego. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, they're right, partially. And the thing is, right by at least the spirit of the book, which is to say, you and I are human, and we're not going to get it right, and that's okay. And so that in evaluating what we do, because we also like to think in extremes, has to be like really great, or we're not going to do it. It's
Yeah,
a
right.
one or it's a zero. And the points that we make are no, if you're 51% good, then do it.
Mm.
It's like with my father, who I struggle with. He's a pastor. And so when I would look and see what he'd do, I was like, "You're a pastor? You're really a horrible person. I mean, you're not even getting all these things right, Dad. And how can you be a pastor? You're supposed to be like, of God, of the big thing." And
Yeah.
so I started to discount him, and then I realized, wait, hang on a second, he's just human, and so the things he's doing is actually more good than bad.
Mm.
And so altruism, like doing this, like you and I talking right now, there is a selfish notion to what we're doing, what I'm doing right now. The fact that I'm talking on camera and saying, "Come and get the book," but I do believe it's more than 50% the right thing,
Wow.
to get out the word about selflessness, to do my darndest to talk about the topic. But I do get something. You're right. But what it isn't, Danny, is not 51%
Mm.
for me or
That's a
more.
that's really a brilliant way to put that. I think we can spend a lot of time debating or analyzing ourselves as to what our motives are, but
Yeah.
why not do good and let the powers that be sort out our ego, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
I actually have friends that do nonprofit work overseas, and that's sort of their philosophy. They're like, hey, we're not going to analyze ourselves while we stay home. We're just going to go and we'll get it sorted out. We'd rather selfishly help people than not help people at all. You know?
Yeah. No, no, I'm totally in that with you, because there's a lot of organizations that understand that about us. And so, selflessness is okay, so
Mm,
long as the first word doesn't overtake the second word, right?
yeah, yeah,
Selflessness, like I am going out to help somebody. See me? Say blink. Yeah, that's okay, so long as it's not more than 51% of why.
wow, that's really good. Now, in this book, you mention training our decision-making muscles to choose others over ourselves. What do you mean by that?
Um, so muscle tone, right?
Hmm.
And muscle tone is that idea of doing something every day that is accessible, so that when the big thing happens, you can jump. And one of the analogies that I think I like to bring up, that we've all seen in the last year, are all the healthcare workers who, again, are sharing their stories, and we're watching it on the news, and you're going, "You look scared. We're scared at home. We don't know what this virus thing is." And you're sitting there in your car outside the hospital. And after you put down that phone, you're going to go back inside.
Right.
And that's because they built up the muscle tone of going in to serve other people for years. And we're trained that way in medical school. And the Hippocratic Oath, those things really came to bear in every country in the world.
Yeah.
And that, for me, proved out the idea of muscle tone. And then if we do that, I
Mm,
was saying that every 15 minutes we're making a decision,
yeah.
it gets on the brain. We build up a little muscle so that when it comes time to jump, we can jump, because you
Yeah.
ain't gonna make that shot if you haven't trained.
Yeah. That that healthcare thing is real. When I remember when all this first happened, if I drove down the street that the hospital was on, I rolled my windows up. I made sure the AC, you know how you can set the setting to where the
Yep,
air stays in the car? It doesn't come
that's
in
right.
from the house. I mean, and to think about people that are literally going into the place, not in a
Yeah.
car, not in a bubble suit, with their bodies. And like you said, having no understanding, even trained nurses still are not, career, what are they called?
Virologist,
Epidemiologists, virologists. Yeah, they're,
epidemiologist, virologist, they're not that. They
yeah,
trusted the system up to a point,
yeah,
but they were driven by something
yeah,
amazing. And in the book, I talk about folks like that,
yeah,
everyday people that surprised the heck out of me. I talked about the mass shootings, right?
yeah,
And the thing about it is, it's always generally one person
sure.
being ultimately selfish, but
Wow.
all around them, I found all these amazing selfless people that would
Mm,
put their lives in danger to counterbalance the bad person.
yeah.
And in the book, I dig into that, like Tiffany Parada, who is an amazing person.
Mm. You mentioned your dad was a pastor. Do you think this idea is more preeminent to you, the pursuit of selflessness? Does it come from a spiritual foundation or the influence of your father?
I don't know. So the stereotype for pastors' kids is that we're the exactly opposite of
Yes.
what a pastor
I,
might be.
I know these kids, by the way.
There you go. All right. So I don't know. I don't. But I do think that the experience of growing up as a pastor's kid has informed me about what that space is. You know, in terms of faith and spirituality and religiosity. But I'm not. I'm no expert. I'm just
Sure.
more of the person that went to work every day and didn't get it right and would go back to work the next day and try it again. But I do think that's part of the mix. So you're right of it. You're right about that because the way my dad lived, because what
Yeah.
informed him was to stay in the space. First of all, he was a youth pastor. Then he
Okay.
became a social worker, and then he had to get food stamps, and we were on welfare because that's what he wanted to do. He didn't want to change jobs. My mom was a school teacher. She often got asked to get become a vice principal or go to the nice school in the district so she could make more money incrementally. But they both had jobs that did not pay a lot. I
Yeah.
think that was more of the big imprint on
Yeah.
me. They didn't say anything, by the way. Never. Danny, they never said, "Oh, you got to be selfless. You got to be kind to people.
Wow.
You got to walk people across the street. You got to go down to the food bank." No, they didn't do any of that. Instead, they just said, "I'm going to the food bank, Richard, and this is what I'm going to do. Richard, I'm going to go down to the church today and I'm going to do this. I'll see you later. Do you want to come or not?" Never was it like, "You got to come on down.
Wow.
Go." My dad did do that for a while, but my mom was like, "Pastor Stephen, they got to go when they're ready to go."
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's really special about your parents. Everybody talks about, unity and we need peace in the world. Um, and while we may never fully master the art of selflessness, maybe through multiple meditations for the rest of
Yeah.
our life, it's the pursuit, I think, that matters. And what
Yes.
would the world change if just we as individuals did that 51% model and said, yeah, even if I'm doing a thing that I'm getting paid to do, I mean, money's just energy anyways. Like when you remove all the ideas about like, oh, well, you're getting paid to do it. It's like, well, yeah, because we have bread to buy. And since bread isn't free, it stands to reason that we should be paid for our work. But I think that it's that pursuit and that individual choice to say, dang it, if it's only 51, we can do that today.
And the pursuit. All right, we're taking you on the road, Danny. Let's go. That's perfect. You're the warm up act now, or the main act. I'll do the warm up.
No, not a chance.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I would love to
and
see the career veteran that's won awards open up for the guy in Nashville who has a home studio.
this is great. Well, we both got home studios. This is great. But we'll talk to Lauren later. We'll get the contract signed.
Okay.
So one of the things that are very accessible though are like 3 lunches, because the idea is like an self-help book, which you brought up earlier.
Yeah.
And that means that it is trying to be very blue collar about a white collar issue, if you will.
Yeah.
And the way, because that's the way I like to look at opportunities and problems, is that how do I get it done in a very practical way. And one thing that because we had a scientist and an assistant researcher on the book,
Mm.
and one of the things that we found was a study out of Stanford that showed, let's just say that I don't like blue shirts. I don't like white backgrounds. Like you have a white background right now, and you don't like stacks of books.
Right.
That's our prejudice, right? And
Yeah.
and they actually based it on ethnic prejudice, but this applies
Mm.
to everything. And they said, meet with them 3 times. These 2 people, whoever they are, who have prejudice against whatever those other people are. And after 3 lunches or 3 coffees or 3 meetings, the prejudice that was measured, the indicators that were here went down to like here, just above 0. And they
Mm.
did this extensive study to show that it's pretty straightforward what we need to do. And, we could bring up all sorts of examples today of if we just made a list of the 3 people that we would never, ever see ourselves hanging out with. I got a list, you got a list, right? And then we set out to meet with them 3 times. Things would be a lot different.
I love that concept. I was just talking about that with several friends of mine, and there was probably 4 of us, all different backgrounds, religious backgrounds, colors of skin, and we sort of met. It was like we were like COVID sucks and it's got us all so separate. Like, can we just get together and hang, kind of thing? And
Yeah.
that was one of the things we talked about. Is like, man, like I actually brought up, like, I don't know what any of you guys believe. I've seen some of your posts and everything, but sitting here in front of you, none of that even matters. Like you're all human beings like me. You have, man, there go your kids. You have ambitions like I do.
Yep.
Well, I'm really enjoying this, and I would hog all of this time. But a lot of questions have come in from people who've bought this book, and they have questions for you. So, are you ready to switch gears and take some of these?
Yeah, I am ready, Danny. And one thing is, when you do get together your friends, it's okay, and it's actually better if you argue as opposed to agree on things,
Yeah.
because you figure out the truth, if you will, between the other person and yourself. That truth,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Well, yeah, and I think we all need to take on a new attitude of, hey, I can't be offended anymore. That's the new me. I'm done being worked up about your questions. You can question me. You can ask me why I believe what I believe or why I do what I do. We should be secure enough to answer those questions and not cancel people, if you will.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
I'm joking.
I was like, Richard, we do need to get together.
Yeah. Richard doesn't know what cancel is. Wait until in 30 minutes.
Yeah. Give it 30 minutes, brother.
Boom.
Yeah, we'll get your switch turned off.
Yeah, we'll get that going.
Oh, gosh. All right. So John from Reston, Virginia, he writes, I'd love to hear more about your faith. How has it shaped who you have become?
In the book, it's the first time, and this is the first time also throughout this process, that I've ever talked about this openly or publicly. I, as a very young kid, what's the name again?
That was John.
John. So it's a really good question, because it is part of why I wrote the book, which is to show a bit of selflessness through vulnerability. And it's a little weird to be talking about religion and faith, because you could know me for 10 years and I would never talk about it. Not because I don't trust you or we're not good friends. It's just what I learned very early in life was that, first of all, I'm not good at it. I'm horrible at it. And I've had a very sort of back and forth, and, I'm in and then I'm not, and then I'm kind of, and then at a certain point I was like, hey, and I don't need to, my friends used to come up to me and say, hey, Richard, from church, my friends from church that I grew up with would go, hey, are you okay, Richard? And then I took offense to that. I was like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what I was basically trying to say, which I should have said more directly to you, John, and Danny, is that, hey, it's for me. I've decided, and when it's time for me, we as you know, evolved thinkers potentially should just allow it to be that way.
Yeah.
And so in the book, I express all of that. I'm in and I'm out, and I'm in and I'm out. So one of the experiences was that, and this is sort of a longer story, but I do want to go there very quickly, is
Yeah,
I
please.
thought I was going to be the world's, what's that?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Yep. Down the cancel road I go. No, I'm joking.
Take us
Is
deep.
that, there you go. Yeah. So I thought I was going to be the world's youngest apostle. And
Mm.
I thought I was going to save all my friends. I was 12 or 13 years old. I was going to church every Sunday. And my dad and I had some really good, mom, too, conversations about this stuff. And so one of my buddies from elementary school and then middle school, we were working on our remote control cars. We were tinkering and I say, oh, now's the time. I'm gonna save my buddy right now. I'm gonna save him. And so hand me that motor, and and I say, hey, have you heard about the good word, and have you thought about finding everlasting life, and he's like, what? No, can we just work on the cars? And that was when I was like, okay, I'm not so good at it. And then later on, when I was in high school, I tested it one more time because I kept on testing, and I went to this Christian camp, and I was probably that was 15 at the time, and I was looking at how everybody was not doing things that they said that I thought they should do, like non-materialism, saying certain things, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, all these people are just opposite of what I was told, and I got so upset. I think I had a panic attack because I had at the time a little bit of a heart issue, and
Hmm.
so there I was in cabin 16, whatever the cabin was, and I'm like calling him up. I think I'm having a heart attack, and in the book I write that I can see the camp counselors going, up. Oh, there's Richard Lou in cabin 16. He's having a cardiac arrest. Let's get there. And they're going, who is this? Who is this kid? In the end, now that I was writing the book, I believe I was having a panic attack. I say all of that, Danny and John, because it has been one of those long, sort of introspective things that have required me to think about inside myself as well as outside myself at the same time, and have that discussion about this very value of selflessness. And to share that in the book for me was a bit much, but I knew it was formative to how I got to this point where I could actually talk about something that I think is a little bit above my pay grade,
Mm.
a lot above my pay grade, but that should not stop me. So
Wow.
I approached it in a way that is my pay grade.
Hmm. Man, I love that vulnerability and appreciate you sharing that. Lauren from Brighton, Michigan. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to day one of your caregiving journey, would you do anything different? Hashtag end ALZ.
Yes. And Alzheimer's. And go blue. Since I went to Michigan. And what was her name again from Brighton?
Lauren.
Lauren. So Lauren, I wouldn't. I don't think I would have changed. I'm not saying I made all the right decisions. I'm not saying that it was a perfect path, because it was not. I did not make all the right decisions, but I wanted to. I wanted to be there. I wanted to. Career's a career, money's money, family's families, values are values, and working hard and is also very important to me. Very much a Midwestern value of let's get it done, and it may be difficult, but okay, that's the way we like it. And so I went at it, and I didn't get it right, but I don't think, Lauren, that I would have changed anything. In a way, I think that, I'll grab this book again. I think that my dad in some way is laughing at me because he can't talk right now, and he only can blink,
Mm.
and he
Wow.
can't walk. But I think when he hears about this thing, he's going to go, see, I gotcha. Gotcha. See, it's fake. I'm actually, see, I finally got him to come around the pike. See, he wrote a book on selflessness.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lauren, it's and Danny, I wouldn't change anything, and I know it's not been easy, but I wouldn't. I don't think.
Man, stop me if I'm going off the rails here, but I didn't realize the present and current condition of your father. This sounds like a very deep time for your family.
It is. My dad is 8 years in on Alzheimer's. The
Wow.
typical span is 7. Um, and I'm really grateful, Danny, that you keyed in on that because although he cannot talk or walk or eat, he now has a stomach feeding tube for the last 2 years. He's still there, at least when I last saw him. During COVID, I've only been able to see him through a glass window. Um,
Wow.
but it is, he gained a pound in the last year. He's a real fatso now. He's up to 139. Um, and I do believe that in many ways, he's still showing and teaching me things. Although he was not a good teacher necessarily, but he was a good egg, right? He was just a good egg. He was
Yeah.
very vulnerable. He was vulnerable in ways I think that aren't typical of men, aren't typical of men of color. And my father was, yeah, he shared a lot of things along the way that, like when he got Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
he would meet people and he'd go, "Oh, hey, good to meet you. What's your name again?" And
Mm.
you go, "My name's Danny." And he would go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have Alzheimer's." And
Wow.
to say that, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm okay
Mhm.
with being sick or having that disability was pretty amazing to me.
Wow. Um, in my college years, I met a man who went on to become the only father figure I knew. Um, he was at the time, I think he was probably around 70, and his name was Paul Merle, and he passed away of dementia. And it was really difficult because we felt like we had already lost him from the dementia, and there was a grieving, a funeral, if you in our hearts, even though we could see him and interact with him. It was this daily loss of, because we knew him before, and then of course when he passed away, it was the second loss. And I think people who right now listening are also have somebody with a brain degenerative issue can probably relate to that, and understand what it's like, when when you're going through that. It's its own special grief. And I don't know. As you're
Yeah.
talking, I thought about my friend Paul, and I appreciate.
What?
It's comforting, I guess, to hear you talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, because it's a shared experience.
Yeah,
You took care of Paul,
yeah,
and Paul. Uh, I like to say the caregivers like you and me, and there's 53 million as you brought up
yeah.
across the country.
Hmm.
That is something that you're going to carry, and it carries maybe the wrong connotation, but you're going to bring that
Yeah.
to every place you go.
Hmm.
And when you bring that to other places that you go, just like Lauren, it sounds like I know which Lauren it may be. We'll see.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
that you're bringing it with you, and you bring it for a reason that is giving to you and giving to others. And
Yeah.
it's a certain amount of again vulnerability that is a selfless notion. It really is.
Yeah, and
And
he stayed an hour away, and it was never a good time. I mean, I have 4 kids, and to visit and to, we all always wondered if he even knew who towards the end, does he even recognize us anyways? Does it matter?
yeah,
And
yeah,
just the act of just go do it. Go do it. You
yes,
don't know. You don't know where people are. I think, I had somebody when he passed told me that I was going to enter into a new season of my manhood, um,
hmm
because a father had passed away, and I definitely did. So, okay, let's go to Tracy from Brooklyn, New York.
well said. By the way,
Oh, thank you. How can one learn to be more vulnerable?
mm. One of the things, it's not so in the selfless conversation, that is being vulnerable. That is you
Yeah.
giving of yourself to somebody else. And, well, maybe I'm not going to get it right. Maybe I'm not so good at it, right? Maybe when we sit down, we have the lunch. I don't know what to say. Um, Another element to some of the exercises that we have in there is gratitude. And gratitude was a chapter we added later in the process, chapter 17. And the reason why we wrote about gratitude, it's the big cousin of selflessness. It is me saying, thank you, Danny. And I know Paul was saying that. Thank you for coming to visit me. Thank you for giving of your time and your care. Thank you for all of that. That is really strong. But you knew that. Like when my father, and when I talk to him now and I use the amplifier on his ears and I will talk into the microphone and I'll go, hey, Dad, if you can hear me, blink once. And he blinks once.
Wow.
That's gratitude,
Yeah.
right? That is him saying, thank you, son, for being here, because he
Yeah.
can't talk.
Yeah.
And if we can do that every day in small ways, and mean it. So that's another thing about selflessness that we discuss in the book is, really say what you mean and really listen to what you ask.
Yeah.
And so how are you doing?
Right.
How are you doing?
Yeah.
I if Danny, you asked me that and I sat here and I didn't, I will always stop and think, how is my dad doing? How am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to answer to the best of my ability. And so I think that's a way of being vulnerable in terms of gratitude. Going back to that, I know I'm hopping around like a jumping bean here, but
Oh.
when it comes to the gratitude, there's gratitude apps that you could use, and they're really interesting because I used one for about 3 to 6 months, 3 to 4 months actually, and I was typing in there and I looked back at how I was typing in what I was. Some days it was about people, sometimes it was about having clean water and fresh vegetables. Sometimes it was, sounds like Marie Kondo, I know, but I was just thanking sort of and be grateful for the things I had. And that can also translate to a gratitude letter. Like if you were to write a letter to Paul, what would that letter be like? Did you ever write a gratitude letter?
Not particularly. I wrote. They asked me to speak at his funeral, and uh, I wouldn't call it speaking. What I did at his funeral, I read a a 2-pager that I had written. Um, but
Mm.
yeah.
And so we should do that. Like if you were to write one like that 2 page, or writing one to potentially even one of your kids, or to a coworker or to a mentor. It The studies show that we quote in the book that the dopamine and the oxytocin in our bloodstreams,
Mhm.
both the gratitude letter writer and the person
Okay.
that you're showing gratitude to. So like if I wrote one to my father, if I were to write one to you, both of us would see that
That's
gratitude high for about a
Mhm.
month.
I love that.
And but we just don't do it. So I would say here to Tracy, those are some of the ways
Mhm.
that we can.
That's the practice you're talking about.
Yes,
The
that's exactly
discipline,
right.
the muscle work.
Right. And in the back of the book, we actually have we laid out what you can do in terms of everyday exercises as a playbook, and really wrote it out like if you're in sports, what a playbook might look like.
Let's go, people. Buy the book. Enough about you. Enough about me. Man, this is really good. This is really good. Um, by the way, you can get it at premiercollectibles.com/Louis. Let me just do my job here for a minute. Uh, Martina from Savannah, Georgia. Did you always know you wanted to become a journalist? If not, when did you know?
Yeah. Martina, right?
Martina.
Yeah. Go Georgia. Lived there for 5 years.
Okay.
Beautiful Savannah. Love it. Also, like Reston, also like Brighton. So, no distinctions there, having been to those places.
Okay, example.
A distinction being made that I enjoy them for all different reasons. But how did I know I wanted to be a journalist?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first time, and I was trying to think, when did I first do something journalistic? And that was when I was at a church camp in high school, and me and my buddy go, "Hey, let's write like a newsletter, and we'll stay up all night from like 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. and write it, you and me, on our Atari 800, and let's just, bang that puppy out." And so he and I would do that every night, and we created something called the Daily Bugle. And the Daily Bugle was taking stories that generally aren't funny and making them funny. And
You
so we
said
would
high school years?
these are high school years,
High
yeah.
school years? That's the best.
And then we would go to the Photoshop. We go to Kinko's at like 6 a.m., photocopy them, and we'd slip it underneath everybody's door before anybody was awake. And we were really the hidden press, the underground press, because we didn't
Wow.
say who did it.
Right. Okay.
And we didn't say who did it, but it was funny, and people were laughing, and they said, "Did you see that? Did you see they made fun of this thing?" But it's still news. So I think that, Martina, when it comes to when did I know I was wanted to be a journalist, that was like the first thing. And then I didn't do anything journalistic until I was in college, and I went to college late because for various reasons, but I went to college late. And so when I was like in my mid 20s, when I did go back to college, I worked at the radio station as a journalist. And one of my first stories as a cub journalist was about Rodney King.
Wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, and it was really and then it was very informative to me when I stood in the streets over the last 5 years for Ferguson and Baltimore and New York and Eric Garner, and then George Floyd over the last year. And each time I was there reporting in the streets, I remembered standing in the streets as that cub reporter in college. And I was just saying, as I think most Americans were feeling, why are we still in the same place? Why am I reporting as a college student and now as a reporter that is older the same story? And that was, I think, not only as an American for me when I took off my journalistic hat, very painful. Then putting my journalistic hat on, it was my requirement to show the context of what we were seeing. And I am not the historic uh, civil rights worker. It were those in the street that I was watching march with generations below them and above them that had lived through all that, and were trying to bring reason and trying to bring calm and all of the. And I bring up that story because they were so selfless, and
Yeah.
they were beyond their years, and they didn't want to have to be in the street, but they were there every day as I watched them walk up and down the streets trying to say, let's protest this, but this is the way we do it. This is the way Martin Luther King taught me, in
Mhm.
essence, is what they were saying. This is what I learned in the 60s. And I want to show you that this is the way we can do it. We need to be vocal, is what they would say, but this is the way to do it. And some did a better, not a better job. I think some were heard in better ways than others, and they were certainly giving of themselves for that. So
Mm.
journalism to me is a really important thing. It is within itself, I believe, a selfless job because you're always talking about other people.
Yeah.
The very idea of journalism is I shouldn't be saying, well, my experience was, well, I could talk to my brother and sister then.
Yeah.
The purpose of a journalist is to say, I met a civil rights leader. This
Mhm.
is what he told me. This is what
Yeah.
she told me.
Yeah. I've always felt proper journalism should be an act of love for others. If you
Yes.
can just find one word that could summarize everything a journalist's job is, I feel it should be love. Do you agree?
I do believe that it is love in a lot of different ways.
Sure.
And it is love of humanity, love of the very nature of people and what they can be. And there's a right time to share that part. And I think you'll see it in the stories. There's some, because I love these folks that I told stories about. Obviously,
Yeah.
they're just I bow to them, basically. They're so awesome in their moments.
Yeah. Well, I would love to spend hours, but we're getting close to time. And I wonder if you would entertain a couple minutes. I would love to ask you 22 fun questions in 2 minutes.
Oh, boy. Okay.
These are things like
Get the
breakfast.
Diet Coke.
Take a swig. Are you game?
Let's do it. I'll do my best. I'm not so fast.
All right. We'll see how fast we can go. Who would you like to have dinner with, past or present? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say my grandfather.
Mm. Which one, Game of Thrones or Stranger Things?
Game of Thrones.
Favorite breakfast food?
Breakfast burritos.
Oh, had me there. Favorite genre of music?
All right, just shows my age. Modern rock.
Who was your idol growing up?
Oh, boy. John McEnroe.
Favorite international cuisine?
Everything.
Same. What is your favorite candy bar?
Oh, whatchamacallit.
I want to be like, oh yeah, what is it? No, what you
Yeah, exactly.
uh
That's also because I put it in the book, by the way, Danny.
Okay, cool. Favorite season?
Summer.
Favorite childhood memory?
Summers in LA.
Okay. What is your go-to workout?
Right now, it is a tonal machine.
Ooh, I've been thinking about that. What do you never leave home without?
What?
What do you never leave home without?
I never leave home without. Where is this thing?
What is this? Is this makeup?
It's a powder puff. I'm
powder
joking.
puff.
I'm joking.
That's actually fair for a journalist.
Yep, that's right. That's because when I go to work, that's the only time where I'm like patting to make sure, okay, because I always forget that. I get to work and I'm like, we got to do it ourselves.
Oh, okay. I always pictured you guys had a big dance of people circling you.
Oh, no. Not in COVID.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah, it's too tough. It's safer this way.
Sure. Do you have a favorite superhero?
Iron Man.
What's your favorite time of day?
What was that?
Well, because Iron Man, are we going to go down the Marvel theory now? I don't think we should.
Yeah, you're right. Let's.
I'm a huge Marvel fan. It's why like you're talking to me.
Okay.
What is your favorite board game?
Oh, still Monopoly.
Mm-hmm. What are your favorite pizza toppings?
Golly, pepperoni, sausage, mushroom, any cheese of large amounts, hot peppers,
banana peppers.
Banana peppers work. I mean, I like the works, basically. That's better to say. The carnivore, the omnivore, whatever it is you got.
Bring it. Do you have a favorite teacher? That could be spiritual, philosophical, history teacher, school teacher, anything.
Ms. Reardon at City College of San Francisco.
Hey, Miss Reardon, listening.
Yep, she taught me how to love education again.
Love that. Favorite author?
Nancy French.
And unfortunately, that's all the time we have. To order Richard's limited edition autograph book, go to premiercollectibles.com/Louis, spelled Lui. And whether you're a collector or lover of books, Premier Collectibles has the best-selling author-signed books that everyone wants. And if you want to be a part of the live signing experience with more of your favorite authors, follow Premier Collectibles on Instagram or Facebook. And Richard, how can people connect with you?
You can find me on social platforms under Richard Louis, Lui.
Killer. From all your friends and from all of us here at Premier Collectibles, from people who have tuned in, This has been really meaningful to me, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Danny. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, good. And bye, everyone.